I think I'm losing my mind. Trying to stay inside the lines.
This is Ida Alvian. Welcome to Celestial You and Gone. I'm gone. So let me tell you something about me.
I'm focused on the future. Don't care about nothing else.
Hi, Ida.
Hi, Nelly.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Happy birthday back. We're just a day apart.
I know. It's hilarious.
I know. There are no accidents, you know. So everybody, I just want to welcome Nelly Sangrujiveth to the Celestial You channel. Thanks for showing up.
Thank you for having me, Ida. I'm so honored. So just for context, everyone, my name's Nelly Sangrujiveth. I am a practicing shamanic healer. I have a website if you're curious about me. It's modernshamanexperience.com. On there, you can find out more about what shamanic healing entails. And today I'm here with Ida because we always have so many wonderful chats together. We're both, white collar workers. My background is as an attorney, and Ida is a pharmacist, which makes for really interesting conversation on its own. And then we couple that with the fact that Ida is on a path of becoming a most wonderful astrologer ever, in my opinion. I've talked to many and she's the best. And then I'm on my own path of practicing shamanism after we've both dabbled in a lot of things, right, Ida?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to start this this series with you because we're going to do a series. And I was just going to say, like, what happens when a lawyer and a pharmacist go into a vortex, go into a bar.
Not a whole lot, I assume, but we're not like the ordinary lawyer and astrologer, or lawyer and pharmacist / astrologer shaman.
And you know what? We don't even drink, so it is very much more like going into a vortex.
It is. It's kind of crazy, like how in the past, like I was just commenting on it yesterday, how like I would get a taco meal and unfathomable that I would not have those tacos with like a Corona, or my favorite is like this beer that's fully dressed with like hot sauce, salt, lime, and a cocktail shrimp. It was the best.
Oh, wow. That sounds really good.
It was. But now we're doing this now, which is really important. So
yeah, I know.
So for this session, I was just going to ask you, Ida, a bunch of questions and get your opinion on things, because I imagine that even though we're kind of in different fields, sorry, I think my dog is like...
That's okay. Other people have dogs too. It makes you more relatable.
Okay, there's 3 of them, so you might hear some noises. Yeah, there they are. Okay. So there's, I think, an intersection of, philosophy, ethics, and metaphysical practices that we have. And I assume that when we work with clients, we get asked some of the same questions. So one of the first ones I've been asked recently, and if you're watching, you know who you are. Why aren't you rich and powerful if you can see all this stuff? Like what is your...
What's my answer to that? Why aren't you rich and powerful? I am rich. I am powerful.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like I feel like, because you guys don't know this, but we're both Tauruses. And so resources, connectedness, and worldly things really matter to us. But that doesn't mean we're materialistic. We just like to be of the world and the earth. So, land, that kind of thing. But, my sister, Nina always says that health is wealth. So to me, as long as you're healthy and you're happy, you're actually wealthy. And as far as technically speaking, I don't believe we are given our abilities in order to produce massive amounts of wealth. We don't, typically when we use our talents, it's in an endeavor to help others. And it's usually given to you, messages are given to you in that altruistic light. So it's never a selfish intent. If you come at it with a selfish intent, your answers are probably not going to come, or they'll be obscured or veiled from you, because that's not actually part of the plan. I think of it that way, but also in astrology, it's a little different. So people have a chart of wealth in astrology, and it's actually preset. So we really can't tamper with that. So I haven't gotten people asking me about this, but then I don't use my astrology to predict the market fluctuations or try to, invest in different things. I know there are astrologers who do that. And that is actually its own study. But for me, I'm not really in this for the monetary gains.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
So you're saying there are some astrologers who would predict things like, I imagine, like world events.
Yeah.
You mentioned market fluctuations. Do you think it's ethical for astrologers to be like doing these types of just very generalized types of world predictions?
I feel like, so if you're a financial advisor, you are also trying to predict the market. And we don't stop to say, is that ethical? I mean, it's all gambling anyway, right? So
depends on who you're asking.
Yeah. So do I think that I think that if an astrologer is working on predicting the cycles and fluctuations of different stocks and bonds and things like that in the market, that they will be allowed to succeed in that venture if it brings prosperity to those who need it. And so I think that's what I would say. I don't cast any judgment on it myself. If you have the chart of an astrologer that is a financial astrologer, and you can help people obtain wealth, that can then solidify them and help bridge them to doing different things that they're meant to do, then you're actually helping them. So I think it really is a nuanced question. What do you think?
What do I think? I've seen a lot of stuff out there. Like, for instance, I remember coming across a really old video. I don't know, must have been really bored because it was some astrologers talking about like celebrities and like so-and-so belonged with so-and-so, but then this other woman came in and broke them up, but really like the original couple, they were like twin flames or something. And I was like, that's so rude.
Yeah.
To like publicly discuss somebody else's chart, like for me, like in the work I do, there's just needing to be so much integrity because it's really not for me. I don't work with anything that would work with me. For instance, if like there was a selfish intent, everything.
I think it really, so I think that so in astrology, we do use famous couples to learn and teach astrology because people know them. Like everybody knows who Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton are. Like, many people know Beyonce and Jay-Z. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you're teaching compatibility, there's sort of this necessity to point out couples that people know in order for them to understand the different concepts, because they'll be like, oh yeah, this person really was like that. And then that was compatible with this. So there's like, it depends really, honestly, I feel like it depends on your intention. Is your intention to educate, or is it to cast like shame or judgment on individuals, right?
I mean, yeah, intention is everything, you know?
Yeah. So if you're coming at it and you're saying, well, we're going to neutrally be neutral, and we have public birth information for these people because they've given it out to the public, right? Then in that case, using it for educational purposes seems okay. In the case that it's a sort of lower vibrational vibe of saying, well, they should never have broken up with this person. Like, you would never even hear me say that ever, because I feel like ethically within astrology, it's important to keep neutrality and a lack of judgment when you're reviewing people's charts, especially because then that's how you're going to approach your clients too, right? You know, I may be privy to information about a person who might be married, who had an affair, or might be in a situation where they went to prison or something like that, that I know, and that I will keep confidential and keep neutral. So I'm not going to talk about their chart in ways that impugns or maligns their character. So it's just really an integrity thing.
You had to touch on something that I think crosses, you know, both of our fields, which is the use of intuition. Because I know, like, astrology in a lot of ways is, I guess some people would say it's a science, because you study formulas and where things are, you know, I'm sorry, I don't know all the terms, but in transit, or, you know, twine or whatever. But it sounds like, you know, when you do a reading, you're also tapping into something else, which we would call intuition. And that being, you're picking up on vibrations that get translated into information, which then you can express, you know, verbally through your mental faculties. So how much do you think you employ intuition in a reading? And I'm curious about that because I wonder if the quality of your work also depends on the person who is asking you to have their chart read, and how open they are for it.
Yes, all of those things. So how much intuition do I use? It's really hard for me to tell, because I don't know what is related to the science of astrology, meaning the placements that I'm just reading, and where it goes into just knowing that this person is a certain way, and that I need to pare down all the possible things that I could say to exactly what's relevant to their situation. But yeah, there are different indicators in astrology that people can receive astrological information. And there's also a strength with which the astrologer has. So it's kind of both. It's very complicated. It is a connection. So, you know, a lot of people who don't believe in astrology just think that I read people really well, like psychologically, which is actually, you know, intuition.
I mean, don't we all, are we always employing that aspect of ourselves?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
our mental faculties, intuition.
Yeah, but what I think astrology gives you is more detailed information and more accurate reflection of the person's essence. And if you happen to have a lot of planets in the 8th house, for example, you're going to be, or in the 12th house, you're going to be more attuned. But particularly in the 8th house, you're just going to be more attuned to that unseen world. The 8th house is thought of as the house of astrology. And so what that gives you is a better ability to kind of download what you need to know. And there's different levels and strengths and weaknesses within different astrologers. And so some astrologers might, for me, I look at myself as more of a relationship astrologer. And it's just the nature of my chart. So I can really easily tap into those kinds of issues. But, you know, as far as knowing how much is intuition, it really does depend for me a lot on the connection between the client and myself. And I think that would happen even if I didn't even see the client. I think if I was just looking at the chart and it was a chart of a person that was, like, say, for example, incredibly unpleasant.
Oh no.
that is actually really hard for me to read. It's hard for me to read a chart like that. But then when I see a chart that like inspires me and it makes me feel like, wow, this person's gonna really change the world, and I just really love how these energies flow in their chart, it leaves me with more of that energetic feeling. So I do think whenever you read a chart, you're downloading that person's energy. And if they have the energy of reception and they do have an unencumbered 5th house of self-expression and their ability to kind of take feedback about themselves, or if their Jupiter is in good dignity, then it's going to be an easy kind of flow. But if it's not, if it's encumbered, or I've encountered some clients where it seems like they want to hear a certain thing. They don't want to hear their chart. They want to almost manipulate what you're about to say. And like, those people are already unhappy with what they have, and they want to change their reality. They're not there in the spirit of accepting. You have to be very receptive, whether you're going to a shaman or whether you're going to an astrologer or anyone. So it just doesn't work otherwise. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I mean, for me, the mind is everything, right? So in my opinion, when I work with people and they're reserved, and this is true, like for anything, like you go to the doctor, you don't want to listen to the doctor, what they have to say. You're not going to take all the medications they're going to prescribe to you. Of course, it's not going to work. You know, this expert give you all this advice and you don't do it. I mean, I think it's the same for astrology as it would be for if people come to see me, is for shaman things or even legal advice. I mean, how many times have people not listened to me, you know, because they thought they knew better. I mean, it happens. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah, it's true. And as far as intuition goes, I don't see how anyone can not use intuition when you do work that deals with something intangible, unseen, like, you know, emotions, what someone's thinking, their mental faculties, their goals, their hopes and dreams. You kind of can't really see that. You can see the results of that manifested in their physical world. Like someone wanted a car and then one day, that's the result. But what comes before that is the thought of the fact that they wanted a car. And you kind of can't see that, or the process of being able to get there, because it's all in your mind, right? And of course, everything is energy and vibration. And so if someone is thinking a certain way, if you're perceptive, then you can pick up on that. I just don't see how anyone in the helping profession just won't ever use that, or just in general life. Like if you're in a room and someone toxic walks into the room, you're going to feel that.
Yeah.
They don't have to say anything. You're just going to feel it. So I think that's really interesting that some doubters would be like, oh, you're just good at reading people, Ida. Well, yes, you are.
Yeah.
Well, also it sounds like you also couple it with astrology, and these charts sound like they're additional tools for your deployment to be able to pinpoint, you use your perception and you pinpoint, the actual need.
It's kind of why I'm not a psychic, right? Because I happen to have this sort of brain of a person who prefers to have more structure and prefers to have some math and some science behind what I say. So, and that's because I have conscious control issues. So so when I I feel like to be a psychic, you have to be very open and very trusting, right? Similar with shamanism, I imagine, just freaking, you must be able to open yourself up. But
it's not all like out there. I mean, there are, there is physical evidence of the things that, and also synchronicity as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So
no, there are, but I think it's interesting because the people will find sort of any reason to doubt or say that well, you're just reading the person and you just happen to be really gifted at reading people. And I'm like, yeah, I can read people too. I've been able to read people for a very long time.
One of your superpowers.
I mean, I have Pluto like right on my ascendant, and people who have Pluto right on their ascendant really are able to see underneath people pretty easily. So there that is. And then, but at the same time, like, I've had situations where people have been like, here's a photograph of someone. And I've been like, oh, okay, this, and so that does happen to me. So I do have that, but I think what makes me probably a better astrologer than a psychic is I sort of prefer to have this, like, the geometry of the sacred geometry, and be able to kind of put some equations to it. And that's very comforting to me because I grew up in science. And so for me, it's just sort of like a soothing blanket. But could I practice astrology? Could I just or not astrology, but just read someone and give them advice? Absolutely. It just would be, it wouldn't be, I wouldn't have all my bells and whistles. And I'd have to, that right there is all intuition. That would be 100% intuition on that side. Then on the other side is, okay, I'm using the chart, I'm reading this. And then the intuition is just like fine tuning it and getting it really accurate, which is what I love to do.
Yay. I know you're so good at your readings. and I recommend you to everyone because of it.
Oh, thank you.
Like, you're having career issues, go talk to Ida.
Yeah, it's, even when I wasn't in this, so I started out as a pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
and I found I couldn't help people enough in the roles I was in.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of, in a box there. And then I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to get my master's in leadership so I can help more people. And that was like closer to understanding psychology. And I really loved it. It was like I opened up a vein and I could just write my papers. It just flowed right out of me because I already knew it. It was just like in there. And I got closer and closer. But really with astrology, it's the first time that I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm supposed to be, because before I would, as a leader and managing other pharmacists and things, I would be able to mentor them. I'd be able to look at them and read them and figure out what's best for them and do all of that. I was always doing that. But the problem is I would want to spend all of my day mentoring people at my job. And I couldn't. I had to make the corporation money and be viable. And so I couldn't really do what I wanted to do. So I definitely feel like it's like I've always, and even when I was younger, maybe wasn't as good at telling people advice, I would still tell people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can. It's so
I'm
adorable.
just better at it now.
So why did you choose astrology as the means to provide advice instead of something else more traditional, like personal coaching?
Yeah, or even psychology, because I thought about getting my master's in psychology, and because psychology just makes sense to me, I thought, okay, great, I can just go and get another degree because that's what I do. But at the end of the day, the reason I chose astrology is because I was in a really dark place and I hit rock bottom. It was, I don't know if it was, there was actually several different lows that I hit. But at the final one was when I decided that I needed to change my life completely. And it was after we had, in the summer of 2020, where we had there were 3 eclipses in a row. And the energy that was released there, I couldn't ignore. I was in so much physical pain. I basically chose astrology because when I had gone to psychologists, and I would go and I would talk about my problems, and then I'd get some help in that respect, but there was nothing that was as effective as going to an astrologer. So the first 2 astrologers I went to were actually psychologists and astrologers, because I was still part of this, I was still a little bit stuck in the system. So I said, okay, let me just go to a psychologist astrologer first, and I did that. And it was good. I mean, I got a lot out of it, but it was my teacher, Laura Barat, who just blew me away with her knowledge of Vedic astrology. And when I had that, and she never even saw me, you guys, like she did it. I ordered off of her website because I found her through Ernst Wilhelm. And then I ordered and I wrote my questions down. I asked like 5 different questions and I gave very minimal background. And I sent them in and with my birth information. And what she sent back to me, like had me like on the ground, like just crying.
Mhm.
because it was like she knew me
Mhm.
all the way, 100%, 360. She got it. And she was the one that said that I should become an astrologer
Yeah.
because I had it written in my chart. And that's how I ended up choosing astrology. I mean, I never thought in a million years I would be an astrologer. Did you think you were going to be a shaman? Like,
No. You know how many years of law school?
like, why bother being a lawyer if you're going to be a shaman?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hilarious because, you know, I've spent a lot of time in postgraduate degrees. I have 2 of them, by the way.
There you go.
And
We're very similar.
I know. And I was just always like, oh, why can't I love this?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many people around me who are so happy with the traditional path.
Yeah.
Like, so happy to just have, like, first of all, financial stability or
Right.
stability in relationships or just living in the hometown that they grew up in.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just been this epic, like, journey and trying to figure out, like, what is happening, but not in, like, just to figure out career and relationship things. It's just more like literally having hauntings in my homes growing up. You know what I mean?
Really? I didn't know
Yeah.
you had that.
Like, so I lived in Thailand for a while, and over there, it's just a completely different experience because spirits are just very well accepted. People
Yeah.
invite them into their homes. You honor your ancestors by putting up a shrine in your home, or even honoring the spirits of the land by putting up a shrine for them. And major condos and hotels will have it, putting fresh flowers. And I can point to one that is easily recognizable. It's the Erewhon Hotel in Bangkok. There is a giant shrine. They have dancers who are on standby for people to hire those dancers.
Wow, really?
Give offerings. Yeah, like people like ask this god there, you know, for things, and then if they get a wish granted, they'll like give offerings. One of them is, and so for me, that
They
was
have that in the Vedic tradition as well.
I am certain because this is a Brahmin, you know, it's a Hindu shrine.
That's right.
So, so for me, you know, when I was growing up, my home was haunted. Okay. And I mean like poltergeist shit. So
No way.
yeah. And then I would get
I'm
woken
sure
up.
they were there because they knew you could feel or see them.
Me and my whole family. I mean, we've all experienced it. And of course, I don't talk about this stuff. Like I didn't talk about it because we didn't grow up in the type of town that we would like talk about these things. And luckily I was open enough to, you know, to different cultures and different experiences in my life to where I didn't think I was crazy. I just thought my house was crazy and I didn't know what to do about it. And traditionally we would hire Thai Buddhist monks to come in and bless the home.
Yeah.
But I didn't have access to that. So there was like my home growing up, then a different home that I stayed in Thailand. Then finally, the big one was my apartment, the last apartment that I stayed in. Actually, the last 2 apartments I stayed in. Like, I just felt like there was like a presence in the room.
Do you feel because you were particularly like permeable to this stuff, do you feel like it was traumatic in a way? Like, was it scary?
Well, yeah. So in one of my homes, I had this hand weight, okay, and it has square sides.
Okay.
And one evening, it just started rolling across the floor.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, isn't that
really
weird? You know, and like the lights were shut off all the time, but none of the other condos' lights were shut off. And
I must have made an agreement before I got to this life. Like, please don't ever haunt me. Like, I'm not into this stuff, please, because I've never had any like any of those?
Yeah, I mean, and a big one was like every time I would start really getting into meditation, it's part of the Buddhist practice, right? You get into meditation, like stuff would happen around me. Like one time I was meditating, and in this corner of the room, there were a bunch of plastic bags with stuff in it. And they started rustling, but there was no air conditioner on. There was no one in the room. We didn't have a rat problem, you know? I'm like, it's scary. So yeah, I called a shaman. Like, hey, I'm being bothered by things. Like, can you help me out? And she did this and that, and it helped. But I'm not gonna like go into her practices or anything or the session because of privacy. But
Yeah.
for her too. But like, you know, during our session, she was like, "Oh, you should study shamanism."
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, really?" Like at first, you know, and I was practicing attorney full time at that time, and I was like, "Nah, I'm good. You know, I like my salary."
Oh yeah.
To make this stuff work. But then
funny.
more and more things kept happening.
But you know, she said that because she heard that.
Yeah, I know she
Now
heard.
you know she was trying to tell you what she was hearing.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't from her. You know,
it was definitely not from her.
Not from her personally. I mean, and what an honor, you know, by the way, to have a shaman, practicing shaman,
recognize that. Yeah.
Like see, you know, potential in me.
Yeah.
So that took, after that, you know, hearing
that was a seed, man. They planted a seed in me.
That was a seed. And I, you know, I had it coming, right? Like this whole lifetime of being hauntings. And it's just so happened that when I looked into shamanism, you know, I heard about this one practice of being able to escort, or how do you say that word? Escort deceased human souls on.
Yeah.
And I was like, bingo, that's for me.
You're like, get these guys out of here. We're cleaning this.
They need it. They need to leave now. And yeah, I've been a lot happier ever since. And I'm happy to do it for other people too. I think that's
it's like, why do you think there are so many souls here? Like that are disembodied spirits? Like,
I mean, I can't really comment on that. Like,
okay.
why they're here. I do understand like why they could be here, but as far as going to see, that's not something I can answer.
Oh, okay. It's interesting. Like, well, you, there are some theories that, you know, there are portals to other dimensions that souls can get in that way. There are other theories that that the nuclear bombs that went off released some sort of portal that let more souls in. There's just so much. It's just really interesting.
It is interesting. I try not to, like in my practice, I try not to like go down the rabbit hole of like every which thing, because you know it can get distracting, and there's just like so much to do. Just even like in my own practice.
Would you, I mean, have you ever talked to a soul like as you're escorting them? Have you ever heard any stories?
No, I try not to do that because I don't want to. So when I escort a soul, if I'm going to, the less attachment that somebody has to this world, the easier it will be for them to go.
Oh, okay. So you try to stay really neutral.
I'm just like, hi, I'm here. You know, like when someone's like, oh, can you talk to Uncle Joe for me and give him like, then you're creating more attachment, and
they won't move on.
And frankly, that's not my job. My job isn't to be, you know, the go-between to deliver messages or
because that's mediumship, right?
It's just not my job. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to comment on what other people do with their gifts. Because I know there are mediums out there
Yeah.
saying that. I don't do that. I'm just happy to help you get rid of your poltergeist.
And move them on.
The things that wake you up at 3 a.m.
Keep it moving, man.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And to cleanse the home, honor the spirits that are in the home, those kinds of things. I'm, all about that. And cleanse your business, man, like that, so you can get clients coming in the door. There is that too.
I think there's just so much fear of, like, growing up, we saw, I don't know about you, but I saw like Exorcist and like these crazy movies that I really should not have seen, like glimpses of them. I really didn't watch it because it was too scary for me. But I don't know. I feel like there's so much fear of the spirit world or the unknown, or that comes from humans just not having any knowledge of how things work. That's just, and maybe we're not supposed to know, but it's just interesting. I find, like, I was pretty lucky. Like, my parents were atheists, so they were like, no, none of this is true. So I kind of like blocked everything out, and I would not watch movies, and I would just, so I kind of like was a little bit more protected. And I never saw any ghosts that I know of. But there's so much fear. Like, even my parents, who are atheists, would get really freaked out if they saw a movie that had like ghosts or things in there, because it's just like so much fear around it.
Well, yeah, and your mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So I can see how that would be really scary if you're watching The Exorcist, and yeah, it's pretty scary. It's like your mind thinks it's real, and then you would imprint that in your mind that this is what spiritualism is about. And it's not. I mean, there are spirits out there, and they're going to be there regardless of whether you recognize them or not. They're going to be there regardless if you acknowledge them or not. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. I mean, I don't have like ghost stories. I'm like the one person probably in this kind of profession that I just don't.
Well, you're really lucky.
I know. I think it's because I was raised atheist, so I never saw anything, and I never, at the time, didn't believe anything existed. So,
I mean, here's an example of, the fact they're going to be there whether you acknowledge them or not. I knew somebody whose partner didn't believe in it, and like their faucet would turn on, like no one's in the kitchen, and it just turns on, and stuff is falling down from the walls. And
oh no, I've never had that.
And he's like one of those, like, unless if I see the apparition literally sit on the couch right in front of me, then I'm not gonna,
No.
Like, well, you can just live with your faucet turning on and stuff falling off your wall then.
Yeah. I mean,
it's fine.
It's interesting. Like, I definitely have been, I feel like maybe I've just been protected. So maybe I'm not supposed to see it because I've never seen anything. And I'm actually I'm really grateful, because I am I went through a period of my life where I was actually quite paranoid. I in college was in a very bad neighborhood. And so rightfully paranoid. Like, I used to sleep with an Aikido stick, and I learned some Aikido.
Wow.
Just in case. And it was a shady neighborhood.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
but anyway, like if I was already seeing things in the dark, like I was like seeing faces, and like my imagination was like so crazy that at that time, if I felt there were ghosts, I probably would have lost it. So,
I mean, yeah, be grateful, because that's what took me on my path, and it kind of sounds like an extreme thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how many people have hauntings, but
you were meant to interact with spirits. Just you are, because that's what you do.
and it's in my chart, right, Ida?
It's in your chart.
Yeah.
You're going to do it. And so they had to expose you to it. But it's not, I'll just sit here with all the astrology charts.
I know.
So,
Yeah, lucky
anyway.
me. I like astrology as well. Actually, when I was 12, I had a book that I still have it. It says the only astrology book you'll ever need.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's good. I
So
feel like everybody should know some astrology. The fact that people don't know and they still think it's a pseudoscience is just a travesty, because just for personal growth, to fully understand who you are, because our journey here on Earth is entirely to understand who we are, and a lot of it has to do with the sun position. It's the place in our chart where we're supposed to focus on growing those skills, but it's always the place in our chart where we still don't have the skills. It's just a little bit out of our reach. Like, so you and I are Taurus suns, and our goal is to heal people. It's just what Tauruses do. But then it's like somehow there's this separation wherever your sun is placed, where it's like, this is who you are, this is who you're becoming, but it's not given to you where the sun is. It's like slightly separated. So you're always sort of reaching for it. It's a very interesting thing, like sun placements.
It is. And I think maybe people like there's a couple things. So you use the word pseudoscience, and I think I hear that a lot. Like these terms like holistic, which is nice, I think, depending on who you're asking, though, alternative or complementary, like these kinds of terms to describe other different practices that may look into things that are more on the spiritual side.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's kind of got a negative connotation in that way, in that, it kind of like categorizes, what you might do, for instance, as being other and therefore unnecessary?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because my teacher, Laura Barat, we had a conversation about this. We are at a time in history where the world is changing drastically. People are at their wits' end. They have been, many of them, through the ringer. And so we are the chosen ones, not in the sense of like prophets, but in the sense that our professions, our spiritual professions, are very much needed. And especially, and I can speak to astrology. Astrology was a forgotten science. The astrology that people know of, like sun sign astrology or like basic astrology, that is really just scratching the surface of what used to be known in the ancient world.
Yeah. And, I remember like just like, for instance, in the newspaper, because that's how old I am, I would open the newspaper and they would have like your astrology of the day.
Yeah.
Like based on your sun sign. And I kind of feel like like, I don't know who wrote that, but it was never right, or it could have been right. Or maybe that's how people got exposed. Like, that's why I think what you do is so important, is because it's not surface level astrological readings.
No,
It's
it really
very
isn't.
detailed and it has its foundation on generations of practice.
Yeah, and it's in the Vedic system. The ancient astrologers were thought to have intuited the knowledge and essentially downloaded the knowledge, just like the Mayans. This knowledge is not something you could simply observe over lifetimes, because we don't have lifetimes and lifetimes on earth in one lifetime to learn, right? So there's no way we could have observed like what would happen with some of the slower moving planets, or like it takes a really long time to observe everything and then write down based off of your observation, like how it affects different people. That is not, I don't buy for a minute, like even though this is a science, I don't buy for a minute that this was not divinely given, because everything we do is divinely given. We understand this now, but when you are connected to the unified field, that is where you get the information. So these ancient astrologers they didn't have computers. They couldn't do all the fancy calculations we have, but somehow they knew equations that work today, that were lost for so long, for hundreds of years. These equations were lost, right? And Ernst Wilhelm's been translating it. Some of the other astrologers have been translating it from Sanskrit. And there is just no way, like when people tell me that, well, I don't believe in astrology because you can't tell me why it works. And they're absolutely right. I can't tell you why it works, because I can tell you, because they're like, why is Jupiter wisdom? You can't tell me why. And I'm like, no, you're right. I can't tell you why. I cannot tell you that I sat down with these people who were born at this time and did a study about Jupiter and wrote down over centuries what would happen if you'd had different placements. No, because that would span more than my lifetimes combined, right? So they're right in the fact that I can't prove to someone that this is a science the way that mathematics is a science. But the problem with that fallacy of thinking, right? Or physics or whatever, these like harder sciences. The problem with that thinking is that they think that people came up with math, and that they think that that people came up with physics. And I don't believe that for a minute. I don't believe the person living in this lifetime could have come up with math or could have come up with physics. I believe that the person here connects to the wisdom of the universe, and through that they understand physics and math and astrology and everything else. Because we are not the limited faculties we have as humans. We just aren't. And this whole idea that like science is like from humans, it really doesn't make any sense to me.
We could go like have a whole large conversation about that. That would take hours.
Yes, it would. That's another, and it's like it really goes, and I didn't even think we would talk about this, like myths about astrology. But the way that my thinking has changed over the years from an atheistic thinking to one of a spiritual thinking, it's a humbling experience. Because when you're an atheist, you feel like our brains can contain this information. And then when you become spiritual, you realize, no. We are only as good as the network we're connected to, right? In some ways, the humans were given the internet, and it is a facsimile of the unified web, or the unified matrix, or the unified, well, whatever you're going to call it, what we tap into.
Oh, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
No, I think you're going to ask about that, so I'll let you.
I thought of a metaphor just now that I think you would appreciate, since you do Bach flower remedies. And it's the doctrine of signatures when you study plants.
Yeah.
I'm certain you've heard of this. How since long ago, before Wikipedia, people were observing plants and their properties to determine how those plants would then, parallel, some kind of treatment in people. And so I just learned actually that, clover is like 3 leaves, kind of parallels the female reproductive system, and red clover in particular, red being, color of blood. So red clover is really good for female reproductive system issues.
Yeah.
Or like pine sap, for instance. The sap looks like blood. It's really antiseptic. It helps seal wounds. These are things that people have been observing for a very long time. And many traditions believe that the work with plants wasn't just science where trial and error. Let's see if, we're going to blow up and die if we eat this thing, right? No.
Yeah.
Virtually, they connected and were able to get information about plants that way.
Like Dr. Bach, who made the Bach flower remedies, was taking flowers, like I have the rose back there, and literally putting the petal under his tongue in his mouth, and just observing what that did to his emotions.
Oh, that's really cool.
And oh my God, can you imagine the I don't even know what kind of clair that is. That's got to be clairsentience, because he was able to taste the flower and observe the physical change in his blood pressure and whatever else was going on in his body. But not only that, he was able to map those flower petals and flower essences to the emotions. I mean, how? I know it was a doctor and I know it's science, but to physically put something in your mouth and be like, I think that helps with fatigue. No, guys, this is him downloading this information. He is literally using, people do this, some psychics, you give them a piece of jewelry and they touch it and they get a download. Well, this guy was putting the doctor was putting the flowers in his mouth, and he was like, oh, I mean, that was revealed to him. That wasn't he wasn't and here I see this whatever is causing this fluctuation. How long it would have taken him to observe all of the physiologic changes that Bach flower remedies cause? As just pure observational science, it would have been impossible to do that, I think, my humble opinion. So when you become spiritual, actually you become humbled. And that's what's happened to me, is I'm like, oh man, all this time, you know, you think your strengths are your strengths, like, oh, I can do this well, right? And then you become spiritual, like, well, they gave that to you. They can give you whatever they want. They can give you whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, I could follow up with that about free will, although we've been at it now for like an hour or so.
We have.
Yeah.
I do want to, let's talk about free will and then we can wrap up.
So in that context, you know, if you think that everyone's born with certain gifts or like a chart where you perhaps can see into someone's past, how does that affect your opinion on free will?
Yeah, so it's tough as an astrologer because you have access to all this information, and then you, as astrologers, we don't follow the same rules as shamans who don't typically heal themselves, as you explained to me before. We actually have to learn from our own charts. And then you get into this, you can get into this, easily become addicted to astrology because you can want to know what's in the chart before you act. You know, like you could go daily transits. That's why I don't really do a lot of teaching of daily transits for people, because I don't want them to be like, well, I don't know if I should cross the road today. And like, don't get to that point, right?
Yeah.
But as it relates to free will, like what I see is that when we think we have free will and we're like, I'm going to make this work, right? Or we're going to do this and it's not the expected thing. Well, hate to break it to people, but if I go and you do that and you come to me and then you go, I did this wild and crazy thing I've never done before, and I go back in time and look at the chart that year or during that time period you did that, guess what? It's going to say that you did this wild and crazy thing and that it was uncharacteristic and that it was a real change in your behavior and everything. And so when astrologers get to see this stuff, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it other than a mind fuck, right? Because you're sitting there looking and you're like, it's all there. It's all there. So what role does free will have in our lives? Well, I think if you look at it like it's all going to happen even if I don't do anything or whatever, the reality is the will, which is mostly to do with Mars in your chart, is already there in your chart. So even the will that you will use, the Mars you're using in your chart, is already predestined. So your will is also predestined. That's what I have seen in my studying of this. But it does no good to say, well, I don't have any free will, because the reality too, the way that I understand things is that we come into this world at a certain time and it is exact and it is for our journey. And we do have consent. We consent to come here. And so in a way, it's all our will. We willed it this way. We agreed to come. We wanted to do this. And we are carrying out our own will. But is the question whether you can stray from your astrological chart? I have not seen it. And I would love to see it one day and be like, oh, I don't see that you did that at all. But I haven't seen it. But does that then mean that we shouldn't try and that we shouldn't exercise our will? And I would advise people to exercise their will, because you're here. You are here for this journey. If you don't try, if you don't will it, if you don't wake up in the morning and go, you know what, it's a weird world and I'm still going to try to do this. And believe me, like after 2020, I would hazard that many people feel like this is a very strange world we're in. You know, and yet they're waking up and they're doing it by learning astrology. I don't want anyone to ever come away and feel disempowered or feel like it doesn't matter, because it's just going to happen anyway. Because that's not the journey you wanted. You came here, I mean, I'm sure if someone's meant to become depressed and learn about depression, they will. But if that's not what you're supposed to be doing, does it matter that this is all planned? Just enjoy the ride.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in what you just said. And I think my views probably are divergent from yours on free will, but it sounds like, you know, first you touch upon the fact that this concept that if time and space is not linear, you know, at one point in time, you know, whether it's past or future self, that you are choosing in this moment in our linear time to have this experience, that you've made the choice in some sense, maybe not in this physical body, but in a different way. And there is a lot of literature out there about it, of people's experiences, like Life Between Lives, for instance, that I've read about. And it's a really interesting, like trippy concept. And there's another aspect that you're talking about that I hear that has to do with people perhaps becoming defeatist in that way, like when they figure out or they might believe that they don't have free will.
Or sometimes people become, like I've heard my family members say, like, you just think everything's just like already planned. Like that's kind of, I don't know. The sentiment is kind of like, they're very resistant to the idea. Because they want to believe that they have like a lot of free will.
Mm-hmm. I'm having a thought, like it's coming up. Okay. Don't you think though that there's a difference between free will and, I mean, in that sense, you're talking about like things that you do, certain circumstances that can be seen in a chart versus the way you think about them. I mean, do you think the way you think about the things that happen to you or the circumstances of your life, is that then what you would consider free will? I mean, when you look at any situation, I think you could see good or bad in everything. And circumstances can be revealed to you in your chart. Maybe free will is just the way you think about them.
Yeah, I thought about that too. So there's this other idea that I thought about where, so the energies of the chart may be fixed in terms of what you will experience at the time, but there is this idea that we can have grace with how we experience life. We can decide to experience those energies in a low vibrational form or a high vibrational form. Mm-hmm. And so you can experience energies with an open heart, like those clients that come to you and it's just like super easy and they're just flowing and everything's wonderful. Mm-hmm. That person is receptive, they have an open heart, they're going through life just, you know, in that moment, just really able to kind of take it all in and adapt and go through things. And then there's those people who shut down. And when they shut down all of their emotions and they shut down all of their ability to process vibration, like they're low vibrational, they're shut off, right? They can have the same energies in this, even to some extent, the same events, like they might be getting married this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
But whether or not it's the experience that the person wants has to do with their will to experience whatever vibration they want to experience for this lifetime. Now, some people say that the vibrations are set too, like you come in at a certain vibration and then, you know, maybe you're meant to like increase that vibration. We don't know. But the point that I'm making, what I always tell my clients is that you may have this chart and you may have these energies, but how you decide to experience them is the part that I think is free will. Like the shit's gonna hit the fan and you're gonna get married. That might be a good thing, right? And you might have a baby and you might move to another town. But none of this tells us whether or not you're happy and you have an open heart and things are flowing for you and you're feeling enlightened and you're not traumatized and shut down, right? So none of that really tells you. I can tell you in the astrology, like you have these skills and you have these energies and you have this going on, and oh, like you can make money easily or you can't, or this is your focus. But what I can't tell you is how you're going to, what vibration do you choose to go through that chart? Are you going to choose a low vibrational version of that lifetime? Or are you going to try to escalate your vibration up? Are you going to go through this kind of thing? All of those, I feel they are, I think we have the power to change that. It's like, how do you change, you know, and I think, you know, maybe from Buddhist principles, the idea of nirvana, like that's all within your, like, it's not your circumstance that gives you that. It's your, like, your ability to rise above your circumstance. For me, that's your vibration. Are you able to take your vibration up? Or do you just get so saddled with suffering? But then there's the idea of karma too. So if you've inherited a lot of karma from past lives that you have to work through in this life, you're going to be really struggling to push your vibration up or keep your vibration up to some extent, because you might have more obstacles. But then when you go through some of those obstacles, you may become extremely strong and then you can do it. So it's just, I think there are things you can do, but it's not like, I don't actually think you can go ahead and go, well, all right, I'm just not going to marry the dude I'm supposed to marry. I think that the bigger kind of like, I don't know. And I'd love to know, like, when I cross over to the other side, I'm just going to spend like so much time downloading all this information, remembering it, because I want to know everything. I want to know like everything. I want to know how it works. It's beautiful. It's a gorgeous system. And the fact that most people think that they're like, or not most people, but some people think in an atheistic fashion that like we're just our bodies and like we just go into the ground, is it's just funny to me at this point, because they actually think that humans are this capable. And I never like, now I just never think of it that way.
So, if you think that the circumstances are set, where, by the way, I think your readings are very healing, because you have a really good ability to make people feel seen. And even if you do reveal like pleasant and unpleasant circumstances, for me, it's very healing. Just in that fact that, you have someone say, I see you. And then for us, I think it's the ability to plan as well and prepare and rethink, our circumstances in a way that, it's a positive thinking. Do you know what I mean? It's getting late, so my words are
Yeah,
getting
no, that's okay. I do. No, I get it.
But for other people, I mean, is that what you're bringing to the table when you do a reading for somebody? Is it just purely to reveal to them their circumstances so that they feel seen? Or do you think there's something else that is a part of a astrological reading?
I think it depends on the reading they ask for and the questions they ask. So if a client comes to me and they're wanting to plan, then it's going to be more of a predictive reading. Like I want to know if I'm going to move this year, or I want to know if I'm going to have a child this year or whatnot. That's when it becomes that. And in those situations, what I'm trying to do is provide the person enough information that they can make wise and well-informed decisions about their future. And
so in that sense, sorry. So in that sense,
yeah, sure.
Not interfering with free will because it's already written out. Because I think the things that we say can impact somebody a lot, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that if that person is not a person who's supposed to get a reading, then they probably won't. If they come in and they're a person who shouldn't get a reading but do, like if they're a person who they're offended by other interpretations of who they are, then there must be, first of all, I think what they should get from the reading, they will get energetically, which is also written in the chart. And what they can't handle or won't accept may be true, will likely be true, okay? But they are not prepared to accept it yet. So sometimes people will come in and ask questions, and then if they're disgruntled about it, it's because they are not in a time frame of acceptance over that issue. And we could fast forward 2 years and they can come back and be like, hey, sorry, like I just didn't understand. And like, yes, all the things you said would happen did happen, but I wasn't in a place where I could accept it. And so I don't know why I'm answering it in this way, but like, but I definitely feel like there's different levels of acceptance. Now, when someone comes to me and they're like, I just want to know about myself more, like I want to know who I am more, and I can do that, then I'm focused on seeing that person. So there's two different kind of readings, and it could be happening at once or through a series. A lot of times what I like to do is I like to do the one where I do the general reading first and I observe who the person is and I let them be seen. And it is healing to know who you are and to have validated for you all the things that you thought that nobody would really understand. That's incredibly healing. That's why astrology is so healing, so calming to me when I study it. It's very calming because we do understand then that there's a method to the madness, that we are exactly who we're supposed to be. So that is extremely healing. And then the predictive side, when it comes to the predictive side, I'd prefer the person does the initial reading, and then we go into the predictive stuff, because the predictive stuff is more planning and getting them ready for what's going to happen in the next year. And if they're kind of in between decisions, it helps to have this additional information. I absolutely feel like the trip to the astrologer is within their chart that they've done so, you know. They should have come to me. If they've come to me, it's because they need to come to me.
Cool. Well, what do you think, Ida? It's 10
a lot. Well, I love it. Thank you so much for joining today. I feel like we covered a lot of subjects, and I can't wait because we're going to have many more sessions. So
shooting the shit and
what's that?
of us just shooting the shit and talking.
Yeah, no, I really like this casual format, and I think it's valuable. I think people will understand more about who we are. And I really love that, because whenever you go to a person who's helping you spiritually connect, and whether it's shamanism or astrology or hypnotherapy, any sort of discipline, I think it's really important to know and trust your the person you're working with. And you really can't do that unless you can kind of understand their intention. So my biggest intention for this series is to share with people where we're coming from, what our intentions are, what our motivations are, because yeah, there is a potential to use these tools in the wrong way. And it's very important to me that people understand the level of integrity and the level of good intentions that we have. So hopefully through this series, they'll get to know us better.
Yeah, I think that's what I hope as well. And in my practice, I do, before I ever start working with someone, I do a 30-minute free consultation beforehand, because I think building a rapport is really important between the person wanting to find a healing or whatever reason why they might seek shamanism in their life, whether it's to, deepen a spiritual connection, get rid of ghosts in your house, increase your spiritual power so that you can go through life with more grace and ease. And knowing the practitioner behind that, I think, is very integral in the healing process. So thank you so much for letting me be on your channel.
Sure, of course. This channel, I really want to be a place where I can introduce different practitioners that I personally know and trust. And so I think it's really great. So if people want to contact you, it is, what is your website again?
It's modernshamanexperience.com.
Okay.
I have a contact form on there, and you can email me.
Perfect. And then I will actually link that in the show notes below for everybody. And as we move forward with our series, we are going to get into more detail about what Nelly does and my experience going through her healing session, because I think it would be really exciting for people to know what's possible through shamanic healing. So stay tuned for our next sessions. And it's just my pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you, Ida. Love you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
I think I'm losing my mind. trying to stay inside the lines. It's like you're running in place. Yeah. How you keep staying the same. Yeah. But baby, I get something different, and I'm okay with that. I can't fake no more smiles. That shit gon' drive me mad. I'm focused on the future, don't care about nothing else. I'm better by myself.